Hey, people.
Welcome. And that's how we start. Welcome to a new podcast. Allie, how are you doing today?
It's a Sunday. I don't think it's the nicest Sunday, but it is Sunday.
It is a Sunday, and it's a Sunday that both of us have partaken in many days of drinking beforehand.
Yeah, 2 nights in a row. You know what? We didn't even say what our podcast name is yet. We're just talking.
We're just talking. We're a little slow today. At least I am.
We're still recovering.
It's okay. I just got off the couch not too long ago.
Yeah. So bear with us.
Yeah, welcome to Conspiracy Happy Hour.
Woohoo.
Where we're going to talk about conspiracy theories.
Take a deep dive into some of the crazy ones, things that could have happened, could be realistic, and some things are just fun to think about.
Yeah, like why people think these things is one of the main reasons I'm into conspiracy theories.
I like I think the theories can be very interesting. Some of them are definitely extremely far-fetched, but some of them are very real possibility. And I know my topic for today has multiple different theories surrounding it, and there are some that are extremely far-fetched, and there's one that I actually might believe. So
I can say I probably don't believe mine, but
it's still fun to think
it's
about,
still
right?
Fun. I picked it for a fun one. It's like kind of well, it's not really light, but it's fun. And so yeah, we both think conspiracies are fun and interesting. And this is our new podcast, The End.
Yeah, not yet.
So do you want to just kick us off with yours?
Yeah, I'll start. First of all, I love this theory so much. I did like hours worth of research, so hopefully it actually sounds okay. I did use a couple sources online that I just wanted to mention. There were 2 YouTube videos that I did watch. One was Kendall Ray, and the other is BuzzFeed Unsolved Network. Both actually, ironically, are called Was the Titanic Sunk on Purpose? So what's my theory? The other few sites, I did use a little bit of Wikipedia. Got to get some of the backstory. History.com and mollybrown.org. So shout out to y'all. Thank you for your help. So let's talk about the Titanic. To me, this is one of the most interesting and believable conspiracies out there. So if you are living under a rock and you've never heard of the Titanic, let me do like a little recap. The Titanic was a luxury passenger ship owned by JP Morgan. Excuse me, not owned, it was financed by JP Morgan. The giant cruise ship measured about 883 feet long, not inches, feet long.
It's a tiny ship. It was a matchbox.
I just think of battleship. Like, you fit it on the pegs.
Well, that's why he got away with it.
883 feet long and weighed roughly 52.3 thousand tons, which is a pretty heavy boat. The ship had its debut on May 31st, 1911, and set sail for the first and last time on April 10th, 1912. 4 days later into the voyage, April 14th, the Titanic struck an iceberg that night, causing the boat to completely submerge within about 2 hours after impact. This ended up killing about 1,500 of the passengers on board, including passengers and crew. There was about 2,200 passengers and crew members. The iceberg was spotted around 11:40 p.m., only moments before impact. The ship's captain had reversed the engines and made a left, and this caused a giant gash down the starboard side of the ship. And it is said today that if the captain would have kept course and hit the iceberg head on, it's likely that the ship would have survived. Yeah. So, well, that's actually something to keep in the back of your mind for later on in the conspiracies. Made that left turn.
I see where this is going.
Made that left turn, yeah. So the Titanic only had about 20 lifeboats on board. Each lifeboat could have held 60 people max, which if you do the math, it's about 1,200 people, which is still less than half of the amount of people on board of the Titanic that voyage. The first boat to launch only had 27 people on board. They were deploying way too early. I think there was panic and rush, and they were just dropping the boats down. So that lifeboat didn't even have half of the capacity before. They could have saved so many other souls, but they didn't.
Nope.
They
could have saved that band that was playing that went down with the ship.
See, you know what's funny? I never saw the movie. I know. I'm probably the only one to say that, but I have never seen the actual Titanic movie. I don't
You
know.
mean you didn't watch it when it was 2 VHSs because that's how long it was?
You had to buy the value pack and switch
You
over
had
halfway.
to switch the VHS tape to the second one to finish the movie.
It was so confusing to me because I remember being a kid and going to my friend's house and I was like, why did you buy 2 Titanic movies? She's like, no, that's the second half.
It's the same movie.
But also,
Well, it's a good movie.
I mean, maybe I'll check it out.
You dabble.
Yeah, we'll see. I like the conspiracy better than the actual things. But also, too, want to point out that the U.S. Senate and the British Fleet Trade did hold hearings after the incident happened. And White Star officials, which the White Star is the fleet of ships. So there were the 3 ships in this White Star fleet. And it was the Britannica, the Olympic, and the Titanic. So when I talk about the White Star, that's what I'm referring to. So they held a hearing with the White Star officials, actually said that they thought this ship was unsinkable and that if there was a collision, it would have taken hours, if not days, for the ship to actually be completely submerged.
And I think that is what lends a lot of credence to the theory because there's big ass ships.
It went down in less than 2 hours.
They take forever to sink.
Yeah. And at the how did it go down so quickly? So that's also another, it lends a lot of support to some of these conspiracies. So there are 3 that I have done some research on. The first one is just fun to think about. The fact that this is true, well, there is a good possibility that this is not true. So the first theory is that a mummy's curse doomed the Titanic.
I'm in.
Oh, you said mummy.
I love that movie.
So The Mummy, that's a good movie. I did see that one.
That's good.
Yeah.
It was only one VHS tape.
But there were multiple movies.
Yeah.
So the first theory goes that the mummy was obtained by a group of Englishmen in the 1800s while digging in Egypt. The mummy was said to never have left Egypt, but the case was taken to England where it caused misfortune to anyone who encountered it. So much so that this mummy was nicknamed the Unlucky Mummy. So, how did all this happen? Well, a lot of misfortune had happened to anyone who had come in contact with this case. There was a disappearance, a death, an amputation, a few people who suffered such financial loss that they ended their lives in poverty. And that was only a couple of the main ones that were documented.
These were survivors of the Titanic?
No. So this is just anybody who came in contact with this particular mummy.
Oh, that was on the ship.
We haven't gotten there yet. We have not
sorry.
gotten there. Stop jumping ahead.
I'll let you finish.
So it started out, so they figured they would try to give this mummy to the British Museum, and that's how they would rid themselves of the curse that this mummy had put upon them. Well, once it made its way to the museum, the curse did not end there. In fact, the workers at the museum and everybody who came in contact with this mummy at the museum also had reported multiple misfortunes after being within proximity. So this case was then sold to an American artist living in New York. And how was that case transported to America, Daniel?
By plane.
By plane? So close, but no. It was transported by the Titanic.
Amelia Earhart was flying it over.
Just dropped it into the ocean.
With her.
Oh my goodness.
Okay.
Oh my God.
I like this theory so far.
Yeah.
I'm on board.
Now, here is where the theory sort of takes a split. So there's one version that when the Titanic sank, the mummy sank with the Titanic. The second version is that the man who was transporting this case convinced some of the people on lifeboats to take this case with him or with them over to America. Once the case got to America, decided that they no longer wanted it anymore because of the misfortune it brought them. So somebody else then had purchased this case who lived in England. So this case now had to travel back across the ocean. I don't know why I said river. Ocean. And that ship had also sunk too. However, the theory becomes more realistic because one of the passengers who went down with the Titanic, his name was William Stead. He was a British editor. He spent his life devoted to researching the curse of the mummy and claiming that once he saw the mummy, it had caused mysterious destruction and disaster for him. And he was spreading the word Well, he never ended up surviving the Titanic. However, some of the passengers aboard the Titanic, they heard these rumors and these stories. And when they made it back to America, they started spreading the stories also. Well, the stories picked up so much momentum that it was picked up by some of the main newspapers at the time. So Washington Post got it, the New York Times got it, and it was not just a story in the paper, it became headlines. So that is how the rumor spread. Now, if you ask me, if my boat was sinking, making sure this case got to the people on lifeboats and made it to America, that would not be my priority. So
no, not with a curse.
Yeah, exactly. The whole reason the ship's going down. So that's one reason why I don't necessarily believe this. Also, as crazy as all this sounds, it's just there is documentation from the British Museum that this case has been there from 1888 to 1990. At that point, it was loaned to Australia for a short bit of time. But apparently, you can go to this British Museum today and visit this case. So the question is, the case that's there, is that a mock-up or is that the actual original cursed case?
Mm-hmm.
Is the original case in the bottom of the ocean? Is it floating between America and England and traveling back and forth? Now, like I said, that one is probably the least believable of the three, but it is a theory. So the second theory goes that J.P. Morgan, who was the investor in this starship fleet, or what is it, the White Star Fleet? Something like that.
Oh, yeah, I think that's what you said.
Yes. So the theory goes that he had planned the Titanic disaster to kill off rival millionaires Jacob Astor, Isidore Stratus, and Benjamin Guggenheim, which I apologize, I'm probably butchering all three of their names. But
well, they're probably dead, so.
All three of them passed away on the Titanic. So this theory stems from the fact that J.P. Morgan himself was supposed to be on the Titanic when it sunk. He had canceled his trip only days prior, and the reasoning why is still unclear. Not to mention there were a list of about 10 other influential people in the financing world who also had backed out of the trip only days before. So the theory goes he wanted to kill off his rival partners because they opposed the creation of the Federal Reserve. So if you don't know what the Federal Reserve is, it's basically a scheme for the rich to stay richer. So the core responsibilities of the Federal Reserve were to set the interest rates, manage the money supply, and regulating financial markets. This theory, however, though, has been slightly debunked as Guggenheim and Astor, they both do not have a stated particular stance on the Federal Reserve, and actually,
so they weren't a part of it, but J.P. Morgan was a part of it.
They didn't have a stance. They would have been a part of the Federal Reserve, but they weren't necessarily opposing it. They weren't necessarily for it. However, Strass, the third man, who was apparently one of Morgan's rivals, he was completely for it. So, and that's documented in multiple places. He was for it. So it's not necessarily true that it was being sunk because they were opposed the Federal Reserve. So all that being said, Morgan himself was not a stupid man. So he hired Captain Edward Smith, who was the captain of up until the Titanic. He was well known for his sailing abilities. Over the course of his career, he earned the reputation for being popular with both crew members and passengers. And in fact, he was dubbed the millionaire's captain because he was so well liked with the wealthy travelers. And side note too, he was the captain of two of the ships in the fleet. He was the captain for the Titanic, and he was also the captain for the Olympic, which is another mental note you should make for later on.
I'm writing this down.
Okay. I thought you would. But he was a very experienced sailor also, so there's no reason why he would have sailed into waters that he knew were going to be filled with ice and icebergs and all of that. It just doesn't make sense. But there is also rumors that he was pressured to keep his speed up and to take shortcuts. So that is a possibility of why he was in the waters that he was in. Now, after an investigation was done, it was discovered that the Titanic was traveling too fast, and had the captain slowed the ship down, the accident could have been averted. Also, to make matters worse, It was a crystal clear night. The waters were calm, so it does not make sense why the iceberg was spotted only moments before impact, and there was no time to adjust course or anything like that. It should have been spotted way in the distance because there was nothing to impede with vision.
Where's the Titanic sailing to again? To England?
No, it left England.
Oh.
And
it was coming to America?
I think it was coming somewhere in America, but it left England. So I'm wondering if it went... You know what? This is one thing I didn't research. I didn't know the course, to be honest. I just know there was ice in the water.
That's what I was just saying. I'm like thinking. I was like, the Titanic's been a thing forever, and I'm just like, is there icebergs between England and... Because it was going to New York, wasn't it?
I honestly don't know. That's the one thing I didn't research. Look it up.
I will.
Look it up while I'm reading. I got you.
I will.
We can fill that part in later.
Yeah.
The question does still remain, though. Did Morgan and his colleagues just get lucky and decide to cancel the trip last minute, or were they aware of the soon-to-be disaster that was about to take place? This next theory is my absolute favorite out of any conspiracy theory, and it is, to me, probably the most believable. So the theory is that the Titanic never actually sunk. Let me explain. So the theory goes that that they decided to switch the Olympic with the Titanic because both ships looked extremely similar. Now, let me explain why. So, as I stated, the three ships were part of the White Star Line, and you had the Titanic, the Olympic, and the Britannic. From the get-go, the Olympic had issues with the electrical system. At one point, it had hit a tugboat, and then to top everything off, it had a collision with another ship called the Hulk, and it was a bad accident. The U.S. Navy actually got involved and said that the Olympic was at fault for this accident, and it was a huge insurance issue. Insurance obviously did not cover because this was the fault of the Olympic. So this ship kind of just remained unusable. It ended up, the accident caused the ship to end up like pulling left, and it wasn't good. It couldn't sail that well anymore. So it ended up docking over in Belfast, England, and ironically, that is where the Titanic launched from. So the theory goes that there was another passenger ship out to sea that night called the SS Californian, which it was true. There was a ship out there nearby called the SS Californian. However, this was also a passenger ship, and that particular night, it just so happened to be sailing with no one on the ship, no one on this huge passenger ship. So the theory goes that this ship was out at sea, and they were supposed to be waiting for a call to come in from the Titanic. When the Titanic hit the iceberg, they were going to call over to the Californian, and they were going to make the distress call. The Californian, since it was empty, was going to take the passengers from the Titanic so everybody would be able to make it home. However, unknowingly, another smaller ship called the Samson had ended up sailing between the two ships. So the Californian had thought the Samson was the Titanic, and the Titanic had thought the Samson was the Californian. So when the Titanic was making their distress call, the Californian did not receive it, and the Samson did receive it. However, that night, the captain was asleep since this accident took place at 11:40-ish p.m. So the captain was asleep and never received the distress call. Now, I want to point out here, if you remember that the White Star's officials had actually said that they thought the Titanic was virtually unsinkable and that this ship should have taken days before completely submerged. If that was the case, they would have had plenty of time to remove all of the people from the Titanic and put them onto the Californian, and nobody should have really died. So the question is, how could the boats have been switched? They're two huge boats. They probably all have their own markings on them specifically. Well, at the time, most of the people working on the Titanic and the Olympic were not the wealthiest of people. And J.P. Morgan, who was probably one of the richest men in the world at the time, he had money. So the theory goes that in order to shut them up, he had paid all of the people on the ship money to keep them quiet, while secretly they decided to change the little, like, the name on the side of the boat and everything like that. Not to mention that at the time there was no security cameras, media was not as in your face as they are today. So nobody would really be documenting a ship overnight like this.
Yeah, no one's doing TikTok dances on the
on the bow
deck.
of the boat. Yeah,
they're like whipping as they're going down. Yeah.
So here's the so-called proof as to how the Titanic could have been switched out with the Olympic. So this stuff blows my mind, actually. On the bow of the ship, the Titanic had 14 portals, which are like the little circular windows that align the ship. The Olympic had 16 portals. The windows were also different too. The Olympic had these thin windows that were unevenly spaced and had and the Titanic had very uniform looking windows. When the Titanic had launched that day, the ship had 16 portals and it had unevenly spaced windows. So right there, red flag of what ship is actually launching. Now, I just want to state again, this is all conspiracy because I don't want people to think that I am stating fact in every situation. This is just what has been researched, and this is all coming from conspiracy articles. So I just need to point that out there. Now then, the naming on this ship was in a slightly different position than it originally did during launch day in 1911. So the name Titanic on the front of the ship looked like it had moved down a few windows. Like, let's, for instance, say the T started under window 4. Well, on the day it launched, the T was under window 8, just for the hell of it.
Yep.
So now, too, if you think back on the accident between the Hulk and the Olympic, the damage caused the Olympic to pull left. That was one of the main issues that it caused. Now, there was a science teacher on board that night named Lawrence Beasley, and he kept saying that he felt the Titanic was pulling to the left. The Titanic was a brand new ship.
How are the science teachers?
You know what? I mean, I can sit in the back of a car and tell it's pulling left or pulling right. So, I mean, a boat, I don't know. He's a science teacher. He knows shit.
He does. He's like, I sense it.
Yeah, he just has that sixth sense, third eye. He was, like I said, he was very adamant that the ship kept pulling left. I don't know why or how he thought that, but that's what he thought. And if you think back, I mean, the Olympic was a ship that was pulling left. The Titanic never should have been pulling it in any direction because it was a brand new ship. This was the first time that it was actually out on waters. Also, too, and if you think back, the captain...
He was an experienced captain.
He was an experienced captain, but he had instructed when it hit the iceberg, I stated if he would have stayed straight, he would have been fine. But he had instructed his team to veer left and reverse the engines. Maybe he didn't instruct anyone to veer left. Maybe the ship veered left, and that's what caused the accident. So that's another theory to cover. And then if you really do want to tie the previous conspiracy back in, there was a bunch of A-listers in the financial world that did cancel their voyage like days before the Titanic was to set sail. So why would they do that? Did they know that the ship they were on was actually the Olympic and that they were going to be sinking the ship, which I don't think I stated yet, but they were going to be sinking the ship for insurance money. So
that's the one I believe the most.
Yes. So the whole conspiracy itself it was switched with the Titanic because the Olympic was now a goner. It was a ship that never would have been able to sail anymore. So if they had sent this ship out, sunk this ship, they would have received the insurance money for the Titanic. And since the Titanic was a luxury ship anyway, it would have received more money than if the Olympic would have sunk. So, and fun fact, the Olympic is still not today, but the Olympic had a couple more trips after the Titanic sunk. So if the ship was deemed unsaleable anymore, how did the Olympic have a couple more?
Because it was the
sales?
Titanic.
Yeah.
It was the Titanic.
So my thought is that the Olympic is at the bottom of the ocean and the Titanic lives on as the Olympic today.
Oh.
The end.
That's a good story.
I know. I feel like I skipped over a couple parts that I shouldn't have. So I tried to do a quick recap at the end. I'm like, I've got a lot of distractions going on right now. I don't know if you can hear jingling, but there's a cat trying to climb onto my lap. And I'm like trying to read what I wrote and like deal with this situation at the same time.
Yeah, there's a cat making a nest on you at the moment.
She is. She's literally climbing under the blanket. I'm like bundled up in the basement with the blanket. Now my cat. So
yeah. Well, that was good.
Thank you.
I definitely heard the JP Morgan one. And one of the things that we're trying to do with this podcast is we're not trying to tell each other which one we're going to do beforehand.
Yes.
So it's like a surprise for each other. But we do have a third party involved that can tell us if someone else is doing one, so we don't bring the same one to the table.
Yeah, so we're sending our ideas to this third party. They're just going to be like, you're good.
Yeah.
Nope, the other person's recording. And
one of mine was the Titanic.
Ironically, the first one that we both wanted to do was the Titanic. So Dan did know that I was going to be doing Titanic. I do not know what he is about to discuss, though. So
yes. Mine is a little different. There's only one theory.
Okay.
I'm not bringing you... I didn't bring you three today. But it's like a theory. It's a tragedy that has a conspiracy.
Oh, I
twist
love a
at
good
the
tragedy.
End. Yes. And this is a pretty well-known tragedy. Are you familiar with JonBenét Ramsey?
Yes. And I don't remember the conspiracy surrounding it because I don't remember the full story, but I'm invested.
So on Christmas night, 1996. So it's really not that long ago. I actually thought this happened.
I was alive.
I was alive too. I thought this was like in the 80s, maybe even the 70s. The JonBenét
but
case.
It's been talked about for a while.
Yeah, I've listened to murder podcasts and stuff about this case, but I don't think I ever remembered when it actually took place.
Mm-hmm.
But she was a child beauty pageant winner, but was killed in her family home in Colorado.
I feel like I'm picturing that. What's that show that used to be on TLC? You remember, like, not Pageant Queens. It was about all the little kids and stuff. It was like Honey Boo Boo got her start.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it's called.
I can't remember. Toddlers and Tiaras. Yeah. That's what it was. That's what I'm picturing in my head right now.
Well, she would have been on this if it was the 2000s and she was still alive. So this is where the conspiracy theory comes in. The conspiracy theory is that JonBenét Ramsey was not killed that night. Instead, she was kidnapped. And of course, apparently as part of some type of Illuminati plan.
Oh, I love a good Illuminati conspiracy.
I read that. I was like, really?
It's involved in everything, and I'm here for it.
Yeah. I was like, if you literally would have taken, as I was doing my research, I was like, I would have really believed this more if you just didn't say, like, the Illuminati did
I know, that kind of cheapens everything, but at the same time, it still makes it interesting.
So, yes, like I was saying, the theory is she was not killed. She was kidnapped. Her death was staged by her parents, and she later resurfaced in 2008 with the hit song "I Kissed a Girl."
Stop it!
So,
oh my God.
I didn't want to read you the title. I titled my little thing.
I fucking we would curse it on this one, right? Because I just like slipped already.
Curse away. So yes, the theory I brought to you today is that Katy Perry is actually JonBenét Ramsey.
Stop it! I want to see pictures of them side by side. We're gonna have to post something about that.
Yeah, I didn't. Yeah, we'll post something on our Instagram to show the comparison because as I was doing research, of course they're back to back, and I'll get to it a little later about the comparison because it's pretty funny.
I love that.
So for our listeners who are not, privy of the details of the JonBenét Ramsey case. Her full name is JonBenét Patricia Ramsey, and she was an American child beauty queen who was killed at the age of 6 in her family's home in Boulder, Colorado. Her body was also discovered with a long handwritten ransom note.
So there was a body.
Yes, there was a body.
There was a body.
Her father, John, found the body in the basement of their house about 7 hours after she had been reported missing. She sustained, it's really sad.
I was just going to say, like, as the parent, why would you not, if you can't find your daughter, why would you wait 7 hours before you search your basement? Like, I would have searched the whole house right away.
Yeah, and that goes into why it was a whole messed up case. So she had sustained a broken skull from a blow to the back of the head and had been strangled. A garrote was found tied around her neck.
Is that like a noose?
A garrote is more of a wire, a very thin wire.
Oh, like a piano wire type of thing. Okay.
Or like a cheese wire.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. His real name is a garrote, but most people, like just call it like a cheese wire or something.
Yeah.
And that was found tied around her neck. The autopsy report stated that JonBenét official cause of death was asphyxiation by strangulation associated with cranial cerebral trauma. And then, and her death was ruled as a homicide. And like I said before, the case generated nationwide public and media interest, in part because her mother, Patsy Ramsey, herself was a former beauty queen and had entered JonBenét in a series of child beauty pageants. And to this day, the case is still unsolved and remains an open investigation with the Boulder Police Department. So that's a little background on JonBenét.
Okay.
And now I'm going to get into where the theory comes in.
Yes, please do.
Okay. It started on YouTube.
Oh, I thought you were going to go with the Illuminati.
No, started on YouTube.
I feel like once YouTube started, that's when all the conspiracy theories really started piling up and happening.
Because people could
voice their opinions.
Yes,
yep.
Just like we're
voicing ours.
Voicing our opinions right now. So did they. So the theories seem to have begun from a YouTube video entitled JonBenét Ramsey is singer Katy Perry. Straight to the point.
Love that.
This video was posted in December 2014. Unfortunately, has been taken down since. This theory, the theory gained traction from there, with several other YouTubers making their own evidence videos. And I just did air quotes, evidence videos.
Because everybody can see that.
Yeah. The story eventually gained enough traction for entertainment news sites to start covering it. Surprisingly, not until February of 2016. And Katy Perry herself even made a reference to it at the VMAs that same year. Oh, this year, sorry.
Made a reference to
the
conspiracy?
Yes,
okay.
The conspiracy theory. I actually saw the video. You know Billy Eichner? You ever watch that? Billy on the Street? He runs up to you.
Oh, yeah.
So they did a skit on the VMAs that year, and he ran up to her and was asking, "Are you really JonBenét Ramsey?"
Oh my God.
So some of the evidence used to support this theory includes the resemblance of Katy Perry and JonBenét, as well as the resemblance, again in air quotes, of both their sets of parents. One theorist even went, this is when you get your tinfoil hat on.
Yeah.
One theorist even went to great lengths to prove the similarities of their eyebrows.
I mean, that's literally hair on your face. You can change the shape of the hair any way you want. That's not...
I put a note after it. I said, which is the detective work we are here for on Conspiracy Happy Hour. I appreciate the hustle. And the person that was doing this evidence video was YouTuber Jungle Surfer. And his video was titled JonBenét Ramsey, Katy Perry, Very Close. That was the title.
Shout out Jungle Surfer.
He stated, this was a quote from him, the eyebrows don't change much on a person. You're born with your eyebrows.
He has never been a woman. He has never been a woman. I think my eyebrow shape has changed 5 times.
Yeah, I'm also not a woman. And I'm just like, this person has not even watched interacted with another woman. For good measure, he also noted, as you know, this whole entertainment industry is just a charade. You really don't know the truth. I was like, well, there you go. You got it. Case solved.
That's it. Another one in the books.
A different YouTuber, which I didn't put their name down, unfortunately, so sorry.
You didn't say sorry at all. Like, yeah, sorry. Whatever.
A different YouTuber pointed out one of the lines in Katy Perry's memoir. I didn't even know she had one.
I mean, it makes sense that she does.
Yeah, everyone has one. She wrote in reference to writing songs at an early age. And this was a quote from her memoir. "Not that I was one of those stage kids. There was no JonBenét Ramsey inside of me waiting to burst out." And that quote has lended to people stating that the Illuminati always puts clues out there that people are hiding in plain sight.
Now, do you know, was Katy Perry's memoir, was that out before or after the conspiracy sort of caught wind?
It's a good question. I don't know.
Because if she would have stated that in her book and then people started saying, oh, I bet. But if it was an aftermath, then it was probably she was trying to just hint at it and joke about it.
Yeah,
so I'm very curious.
Katy Perry memoir. My Google searches Katy Perry's JonBenét Ramsey.
I know. My thing is literally just pops up with like, oh, you might be interested in this conspiracy next. And I was like, I think I am writing that one down.
I know. Putting that one down. We'll edit all this together. Memoir. Katy Perry, a biography. When does it say it came out? Oh, this came out in 2012.
Okay.
And the theory came out in 2016.
Oof.
So.
Ooh. Okay.
It's all coming together.
Like, at that time, she totally could have referenced toddlers and tiaras, but she strictly went on to JonBenét Ramsey.
Yeah. She's part of she's hiding in plain sight.
I'm on to you, Katie.
Yeah.
I'm on to you.
You know, and these little hints that she's dropping has allowed her to continue living among us in her new persona of Katy Perry.
Interesting.
And that's essentially the whole conspiracy.
So I guess my question would be, the body that they found, if she's alive, did they like get a rent-a-body or something? Like, what the hell?
Here's what I concluded, that it's a fun theory.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe it.
No, probably not.
Yeah. Like, if you just do a quick Google search, you can see that Katy Perry would have been 12 years old when JonBenét was murdered.
Okay.
Yeah, they're 6 years apart.
So, I mean, and you can't fake age that well.
Yeah. There's also that so before Katy Perry was Katy Perry, her real name is Katie Hudson, and she was a Christian singer beforehand. And her pop album, which was released in 2001, Perry was 17, JonBenét would have only been 11, and her records of her being picked up and dropped by big name labels between 2001 and 2008 undermines the whole Katy Perry appearing out of nowhere idea.
Okay.
So yeah, just a slight look at the math. It already starts to debunk the theory, but it's a fun one.
Do you know if they ever, because I can't remember, I honestly don't remember the story very well, but do you remember has this murder ever been solved?
No, it's still unsolved.
Okay, I was like, I'm either thinking of another theory or what actually happened, but I think there was also a theory that it was the younger brother who had killed her and that the parents were covering it up for the reasoning of like not wanting their son to go to jail also.
Well, I do know the one you're talking about. There is a younger brother in this one as well. But in this case, the brother is the only one that has never been considered a suspect.
Okay.
Yeah. I can't remember I do remember the one you're talking about though.
I feel like, I don't know. I'm going to have to dig into this story because I don't remember a thing about it.
Yeah.
But I feel like there was also like a weird theory that like Santa Claus had done it. But Santa Claus being...
Santa Claus killed. That's going to be the title of this episode. Santa Claus
did it.
Killed JonBenét Ramsey.
But I feel like it was like Santa Claus, like someone dressed up like Santa Claus because it was Christmas Eve, and he was like a neighbor from down the street who was dressed up like Santa Claus who had come over to the house, but he was also like creepy, like pedophile style.
I'm sure there's something.
I don't know. We're going to have to do like the next episode, the beginning of the episode. We're just going to have to follow up with some of the stuff that we discussed.
So I just did a quick Google search of Santa Claus mass murder. And it was called the Covina Massacre. It occurred in Los Angeles, and he killed 9 people. He was dressed as Santa Claus.
Okay, I think that's a different story.
Yeah. But yeah, that is my theory. That's my conspiracy theory. JonBenét Ramsey is being Katy Perry.
I'm gonna have to like that's just an interesting I love that shit. Like I mean, that's just like I said, it's definitely more than likely is not true, but it's a fun thing to think about. Mm-hmm. It's just like it really plays with your mind sometimes, and that's how these conspiracies I think start gaining momentum. Like I said, Titanic, the one that I went over for insurance purposes, probably one of the only conspiracies I do actually believe in.
Yeah.
But the rest are just fun to think about, tell like the facts and the stories and the air quote proof of why it could be that way. So.
I just want to, before I forget again for a third time, I just want to say my sources.
Oh, yes. Please share.
First one was Jungle Surfer.
Jungle
Our
Surfer.
Friend. Yeah. His eyebrow game. And a few other articles that I consolidated. One was from nyulocal.com. Well, one was from the Huffington Post. And another one was, of course, Wikipedia for the backstory of
I
JonBenét.
remember do you remember like all of the book reports and stuff when you were kids and your teacher's like, you're not allowed to use Wikipedia and stuff like that? I get it. You can create your own facts on Wikipedia, but sometimes Wikipedia can be helpful with like the dates and like the very like the things you can't screw up. So
yeah.
Wikipedia.
Well, Wikipedia is great.
Yeah. Or
we love Wikipedia. Please donate.
WikiHow.
WikiHow.
I love WikiHow.
They're illustrations.
Or is there like a Wiki Med now?
Yay. Yeah, we did it. We got through our first episode.
So Dan and I were going to be researching like 3 topics, and then we were going to try to go over and like record each one of those episodes during this time and everything because we're all set up. And I messaged him yesterday morning and I was like, so I just spent like 4 hours doing my first one. I'm not even done yet. So can we hold off on the other 2? He's like, yeah, I'm not done yet either. Let's hold off. So we still have to research our other 2, but our first 3 episodes, we know what we're talking about already. So it's really exciting.
It is.
It'll be a surprise for you. We're not sharing the secrets.
And it's a surprise for each other.
I know. You don't know what I'm choosing. And the Titanic was the only one that you knew. And it's because you also had picked it.
Yeah.
So.
I was going to do another one today, but I was like, I'll keep it light.
Yeah, keep it light and happy with a murder.
With a child murder.
I will say, like, some of my favorite YouTube videos and stuff to watch are people covering conspiracies. And I do like when they're not necessarily, like, they're not, like, just giving you one-sided facts. They're giving you facts so you can form your own opinions.
Yeah.
So I do enjoy those. But like I said, I just, like, it plays tricks with your mind. I like thinking about it.
Yeah, me too. I like that. So I like just the fact that, because like psychology has always been interesting to me, and the fact that people believe these things is kind of funny and interesting just in general. But like you said, some of them, they're like, oh my God, this could be true. Like, of course, someone's going to sink a ship for insurance money.
Yeah.
Do I think JonBenét Ramsey is Katy Perry? No.
No, but fun to think about.
Fun to think about.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of, actually, when I was doing research, just like so many conspiracy theories involving, like I saw one today when I was looking it up and it was like Nicki Minaj was Dr. Dre and I was like, what?
Well, like a sex change?
I guess so. I was like,
That's weird.
Add it to the
list. Yeah. Now we got to talk.
Yeah.
So I know that this is the first episode. Dan and I are very excited. We've discussed a lot of upcoming possibilities and directions that we want this to go. So hopefully as we move forward, it's going to get more, I don't want to say more interesting. I think it's already interesting, but more like into like, we're going to have themes for certain days. We're going to have...
Hopefully one day we have submissions from you guys.
Yeah, we're going to have to incorporate our happy hour theme. And so I know we had a lot of ideas.
For our first episode, we're drinking coffee because we were drinking the last 2 days.
Normally we'll be like a little more loose. Have some like White Claws in hand or something, but it's just a recovery day.
Yeah, today was just a day of rest and my eyes.
It was a great weekend, though.
It was a good weekend.
It was a great weekend.
But yeah, so thank you for listening.
Yes, and you might want to check out Dan. He has another podcast also.
Yeah, we're gonna do some selfish plugs now.
Yeah, straight.
I am also part of Geckos and Grottos D&D podcast, which you can find on all social medias and all podcasting apps. Also part of Geckos Media in general, which is our podcasting company.
So thank you, Dan, for producing this podcast, Geckos Media.
Yeah, and you can find us at geckosmedia.com and Geckos Media on Instagram.
And I also have another podcast going, brand new. It's called Tell Me I'm Not Crazy, where I just talk with friends and coworkers about weird things that you think about daily and hope you're not crazy as you think you are. And once again, that podcast is also produced by Geckos Media.
Yes. And if you want to know how Allison and I actually met, you can listen to episode 2 of that because I was a guest.
And ironically, we are talking about our favorite beverage, coffee. So,
full circle.
You're right. So what we do when we get together, we sit, we talk, we drink coffee.
We drink coffee.
Or White Claw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The end.
Yay.
We'll come up with a clever sign off eventually. We'll get there.
All right.
Oh, well, until next time.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Conspiracy Happy Hour. Be sure to listen, follow, and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, or wherever you get your podcasts. Have a spooky story, conspiracy, or weird encounter that you would like to hear read in a future episode? Email your story to conspiracyhappyhour@gmail.com and follow the show on Instagram and Facebook @conspiracyhappyhour. This podcast is produced and edited by Geckos Media and is a part of the Geckos Media Network. Interested in starting your own podcast and not quite sure where to begin? Visit geckosmedia.com and sign up for a free one-on-one consultation. Until next time, see you.